You wake before the sun dares lift its head over the cold, soot-crusted rooftops of London. The fire in the hearth has long since died to a pale dust of ash, and your bones remember the chill before your mind quite catches up. You do not want to leave the warmth of your narrow cot, not that it's truly warm, only slightly less cold than the stone floor. But the house waits. The house is always waiting. The air is damp and metallic in your nostrils, like the iron of the coal scuttles you'll carry later, or the kitchen knives you will polish until your arms ache. You stretch slightly, yet careful not to make noise in the attic dormitory where your fellow servants sleep in rows like forgotten spoons in a dark drawer. Their breath rises softly, briefly warming the stale air before it slips away into the rafters. Your fingers fumble for your worn, stiff stockings. They smell faintly of the soap you scrubbed them with last night, the cheap, yellow soap that takes the dirt off your clothes and the skin off your hands. Your shoes wait by the door, cracked and leaning slightly to the left, as if they too are tired of this life. You light a stub of candle, watching the flame flutter in the drafty room. The shadows stretch like thin fingers across the sloped ceiling. This is your time, the quiet before the day crushes you with its list of tasks. You breathe it in, this moment of fragile stillness. Then you blow the candle out. Down the stairs now, always down. For flights, each one colder than the last, your steps practiced and quiet. The walls close in around you, smelling faintly of damp plaster and cabbage. You move past the doors of those above you in every sense of the word. They dream their silk-draped dreams in feather beds, undisturbed by the world you inhabit below. In the scullery, the cold stone floor greets your bare feet like an old adversary. The hearth is black and silent. You kneel and begin your first ritual of the day, laying the fire. Coal dust coats your fingers, creeping under your nails, no matter how many times you wash them later. You build the fire with slow, careful hand sticks coal. A crumpled scrap of yesterday's newspaper, all balanced like a fragile hope. A strike of the match, a whisper of flame, and the heart of the house begins to beat once more. Then the water, always the water. You haul, bucket after bucket from the pump outside, its icy handle numbing your palms. Your breath rises in little white clouds as you carry the water inside, careful not to spill a drop on the flagstones. Soon it will heat in great clanking kettles for washing faces, scrubbing floors, and brewing tea that you may or may not get to drink. The kitchen, at this hour, is yours alone. Rows of copper pots hang gleaming in the half-light, like silent sentries on parade. You run your hand along the smooth surface of the work table, rough from countless scrubbings. The clock ticks slowly in the corner, reminding you that your freedom is measured in minutes. You chop the first onions of the day, and they sting your eyes, though you tell yourself it's not from sadness. The bread sits in the larder, stiff and unyielding, and you wonder briefly if the kitchen mice find it any more satisfying than you do. Soon Mrs. Bridges, the cook, will descend in a whirlwind of starched apron and stern frown, and your day will truly begin. She will inspect your fire, your water buckets, your preparations, and your very soul, and find each wanting. But for now, for these few sacred minutes, you are alone. Just you, the flame, the cold, and the coming day. Outside, the city groans itself awake. A milkman rattles by in his cart. A distant church bell chimes 6. Somewhere a steam whistle shrieks like a bird startled from its nest. The fog presses against the kitchen window, thick and gray, as though the whole world is wrapped in an old woolen blanket. Take a breath, and another. Then you tie your apron tight, smoothing its worn folds with calloused hands. The day is long. Longer than you can bear to think about just now. But you will begin it all the same, because this is what servants do. They begin again, every morning. You lose yourself in the rhythm of the morning, or rather the morning loses itself in you. There's no time to think, no space to feel sorry for yourself, only a long, steady march of tasks that do not care whether you are happy or tired or even truly awake. The other servants filter down, one by one, rubbing their eyes, fastening their aprons, muttering sleepy greetings. The kitchen becomes alive with movement, but not with joy. There is no music here except the clatter of pots and the scrape of chairs against the flagstones. Cook storms in, as expected, her voice sharp as vinegar. She inspects your work with the grim satisfaction of someone who finds fault not out of cruelty, but out of tradition. She was once like you, perhaps, long ago. Now she is something else entirely solid, immovable, a permanent fixture in this vast household machine. She nods at your fire, but reminds you unnecessarily to polish the brass kettle later. You smile the thin smile of the obedient. Breakfast preparations swallow you whole. Bacon spits and hisses in the pan, fat crackling like distant thunder. Eggs boil with quiet purpose in a dented pot. You toast bread over the open flame, careful not to burn it, though it will be cold and disappointing by the time it reaches the master's plate. Regardless, everything in this house travels through too many hands before it lands where it's meant to be. Then there's the tea. Always the tea. Measured out in small silver spoons, as if it were powdered gold. The best for the family upstairs, of course. You, if you're lucky, will steal a lukewarm sip from the dregs later, when no one is looking. You ferry the breakfast tray upstairs with careful steps, balancing it as though your life depends on it. In a way it does. The stairs stretch ahead, tall and steep, winding toward the grand rooms where people with softer hands and softer voices sleep in linen sheets. You climb them like a pilgrim ascending to some unreachable temple. The mistress is awake, or nearly. Her hair spills over her shoulders and curls so perfectly undone that you suspect she slept sitting up. She does not look at you, only waves a pale hand toward the windows. You pull back the heavy drapes, and light floods in, hesitant and thin. Dust motes dance in the morning air, swirling like tiny ghosts. Too bright, she mutters, pulling the coverlet over her face. Draw the curtains halfway, though. She does not thank you. She never does. Back down the stairs now. Always down. Always returning to the place where your world begins and ends. The kitchen waits with its endless parade of pots and plates and grease-smeared cloths. There are fireplaces to sweep, boots to polish, silverware to rub until your wrists ache. You scrub the floors next, on your hands and knees, working your way from the back corridor to the front hall, where your work is meant to be invisible. A good servant leaves no trace. You clean the house as though you never lived in it at all. Voices echo faintly from the drawing room laughter, delicate and sharp. You wonder what it feels like to laugh like that, carefree and practiced, without glancing over your shoulder to see who might scold you for idleness. Outside, the city stirs and rumbles. Horse-drawn carriages clatter past the windows. A street seller shouts something unintelligible beneath the fog. The world spins on, utterly indifferent to your labors. The footman passes by, straightening his jacket and offering you a wink. You roll your eyes but smile, briefly, in spite of yourself. A moment of human foolishness in a day otherwise shaped by duty. The kitchen maid drops a plate, and it shatters across the floor. Silence falls like a stone. Then the cook's voice erupts, sharp enough to cut the air. The kitchen maid's cheeks burn red, her eyes shiny with unshed tears. You feel them too, though yours stay tucked neatly behind your polite expression. Breakages are paid in docked wages, you see. You sweep the shards away gently, as if the floor were a sleeping child you didn't wish to wake. Then, more polishing. The world is dull and dusty, and your job is to make it shine for people who will never see the effort it took. They will see only the shine, and they will think the shine was always there. By late morning, your stomach rumbles in quiet protest. Breakfast for the servants is a distant memory, and lunch a far-off dream. You steal a heel of bread from the pantry, chewing it quickly between tasks, savoring its plainness. Your hands, already raw from soap and cold water, grow numb as you wring out another rag, scrub another dish, sweep another floorboard clean of soot and crumbs. The house is awake now, fully alive with footsteps, orders, complaints, and idle conversation. But you, down here in the belly of the beast, feel half invisible. And somehow, that's easier than being seen. The midday sun, such as it is through the thick London fog, creeps reluctantly across the sky. Do you feel it not on your face, but in the subtle shift of duties? Morning chores give way to midday errands, 2 bell rings and whispered orders. You are no longer the solitary fire builder or the quiet floor scrubber. You are now the shadow that answers calls, the footsteps that arrive before your name is spoken. A bell rings from the upstairs drawing room, a sharp, impatient little ding that slices through the kitchen's bustle like a knife through fat. Wipe your hands on your apron and climb again, the staircase worn smooth beneath your steps. Up. Always up. as if your life is measured in stairs, climbed, and knees worn thin. The master's voice is clipped, barely acknowledging your presence. A letter must be delivered to the club, he says, as if it were already halfway there. He waves a pale hand toward the sealed envelope on the side table, too lazy or too grand to pick it up himself. You bow your head, take the letter with careful fingers, and slip away without a word. Servants do not speak unless spoken to. Servants do not breathe too loud. Servants certainly do not comment on the smell of his pipe tobacco still hanging in the air. The street outside hits you like a bucket of cold water. Noise, smells, life. People jostle past you in every direction, flower girls shouting their wares. Chimney sweeps black with soot, hansom cabs rattling over cobblestones slick with yesterday's rain, and for a moment you are just a person. Just another tired soul with errands to run and shoes that pinch. You deliver the letter, your footsteps swallowed by the city's endless hum. No one spares you a second glance. They see your plain dress, your quick, efficient walk, and they know you are a servant. A background figure in someone else's story. You return to the house before your absence is missed. Back through the scullery door, into the warmth and clangor of the kitchen, where you belong. The afternoon brings more polishing. Silver spoons so bright you could blind yourself staring at them. Brass knockers and curtain rods, coal scuttles and candlesticks. Every object gleams, as if by your labor it becomes something more than just metal. You work in silence beside the other maids, your heads bowed over your tasks. Occasionally someone hums a half-forgotten tune, soft as breath. No one speaks much. It wastes energy you can't afford to lose. At 2:30, the afternoon tea preparations begin. Scones are sliced, jam is set out in delicate crystal bowls, and tiny sandwiches are stacked with mathematical precision. You won't taste a single one, but your hands will know their weight. You carry the tea tray upstairs, walking as though the slightest jolt might append the entire household's reputation. On the way, you catch your reflection in a hallway mirror. For a fleeting second, you almost don't recognize yourself. Pale face, blue eyes, a thin ghost in a servant's uniform. The mistress sips her tea with a sigh of contentment, her porcelain cup resting lightly in her manicured fingers. She does not glance at you as you refill her cup. You could be anyone, could be no one. That is the peculiar art of being a servant. You are everywhere, and yet you are unseen. Back downstairs, the afternoon stretches like a thread you must follow, task after task after task. You mend a torn hem in the linen cupboard, the quiet space lit only by a narrow shaft of sunlight filtering through the dust. The needle pricks your fingers again and again, but you hardly feel it anymore. The butler's voice interrupts your moment of calm. The library fire needs tending. Off you go again, carrying a fresh scuttle of coal that bruises your hip as you walk. In the library, the air is warm and heavy with the scent of books and cigar smoke. The master lounges in his chair, absorbed in a newspaper, his feet propped on an ottoman you polished just this morning. He doesn't acknowledge you. You kneel by the hearth, coaxing the fire to life, careful not to breathe too loud, careful not to exist too much. The flames catch, and your work is done. You rise, brush the coal dust from your skirt, and slip away, unnoticed. That is your victory, small though it may be, to leave a room without a trace. You return to the kitchen as afternoon darkens into early evening, where dinner preparations have already begun. Steam fills the air, thick and fragrant, clinging to your hair, your skin, your very bones. The house hums with activity now, a hive of quiet industry. And you, one of its many worker bees, lose yourself in the swarm. The hours tilt toward evening, and with them comes the heavy ritual of dinner, the grand performance of the household day. Everything you've done until now has been a quiet rehearsal for this moment, and now the stage is set. The kitchen swells with heat and noise. Pots bubble, knives clatter, voices mutter and snap over the hiss of boiling water. The cook commands the chaos with a voice like a cannon blast, her words cutting through the steam. You are her shadow. You fetch, you carry, you chop and peel and stir. You keep pace with her demands, because to fall behind is to suffer her sharp tongue, and no one has energy left for tears. The food itself is a contradiction. Rich and lavish, fit for royalty, though you yourself will never taste more than a forgotten crust. roast beef glistening with golden fat, plum pudding, dark and dense, steamed for hours until the scent fills every crack in the walls. Bowls of bright green peas and potatoes whipped smooth as silk, carried up to people who do not know your name. You polish the silver serving dishes until your reflection stares back at you, warped and ghostly. Somewhere deep inside, you laugh softly at the absurdity of it. This gleaming perfection carried by hands raw and cracked. When the final dish is placed on the tray, the butler enters. Polished shoes, stiff collar, voice as smooth as glass. He inspects the spread with a cold eye and gives a single, curt nod. The dinner parade begins. Servants line up like foot soldiers, each with their assigned task. You are but one step in this long, choreographed procession. You lift your end of the tray, muscles tight with strain, and begin the slow, careful ascent. Up the stairs. Always up. At the grand dining room doors, the butler straightens his jacket, clears his throat, and opens them wide. And there they sit. The masters of the house, draped in fine silks and stiff collars, their voices low and lazy as they speak of stocks and scandals, the weather and the latest scandalous play at the theater. Their laughter bubbles like champagne, light and careless. They do not look at you. You place the silver dishes on the table beneath the crystal chandelier, its light catching every polished surface, every folded napkin, every sparkling glass. On my side. The food steams in the candlelight, rich and golden and utterly beyond your reach. Then you retreat, step by step, quiet as breath, until the doors close once more and the music of cutlery against porcelain takes over. Back in the kitchen, you collapse onto a stool for just a moment. Your back aches, your feet throb, and your stomach growls softly, embarrassed by its own hunger. Finally, you are allowed your dinner, if one could call it that. Scraps from the kitchen. Crusts of bread, a cracked potato, a bit of cold gravy scraped from a pan. You eat quickly, without ceremony. The food is gone before you can even taste it. But it fills the hollow space, and for now, that is enough. The evening wears on, and the plates return to you. Stacked high, smeared with sauces and crumbs, bearing no trace of their former glory. You scrub them all, one by one, until your hands sting, and the hot water smells only of soap and exhaustion. Outside, the darkness presses against the windows, thick and endless. Inside, the house hums on. You sneak a glance through the kitchen window at the gaslights flickering in the street, casting long, golden reflections in the puddles below. Somewhere beyond those streets, people live lives without servant bells or silver polish or calloused hands. You wonder, briefly, what that would feel like. But the moment slips away. The cook barks your name, and you return to your work. Later, you polish the cutlery once more, setting it in neat rows for the next day's battle. Because that's what this is, really, a war of tasks. The house wins every day. And yet you show up. Perhaps that is a kind of victory. At last, when the final pot is scrubbed, and the kitchen floor swept, the cook sighs and tells you to go. Her voice is softer now, but tired, the sharpness worn dull by the long day. You climb the narrow servants' stairs, your body heavier with each step. The house is quiet now, resting before tomorrow's noise. You reach your attic room. The bed waits, lumpy and thin, but it is yours. For now. You peel off your apron, the thin armor of your day, and stretch your arms into the night air drifting through the cracked window. You close your eyes. Sleep comes quickly, heavy as stone. But you know the bell will ring again tomorrow. The morning comes again, as relentless as the tides and twice as cold. You stir before the first light crawls across the rooftops, your body stiff as the floorboards beneath your bed. Sleep has only softened the edges of your weariness. It has not erased it. But no one asks whether you rested well. No one waits for your complaints. You dress by memory, not thought, fumbling into your stiff uniform in the darkness. The same stockings, the same cracked shoes, the same faded apron waiting by the door. There is a kind of comfort in the repetition if you squint hard enough to see it. Down the narrow stairs again. The house sleeps above, but below. The kitchen is cold and waiting. The coals in the scuttle sit silent and accusing. You kneel before the hearth like a penitent at the altar and rebuild the fire from ash and splintered kindling. The match flares, the flame catches, and for a moment the shadows draw back. But the warmth will take time to reach you. You fetch the water next. The pump outside squeals in protest as you draw it up, the cold biting your fingers. You haul it back, bucket after bucket, the weight pulling at your shoulders like invisible hands. Breakfast must be prepared, and the clock, stern and uncaring, ticks steadily on. You slice bread, fry bacon, crack eggs into a pan that hisses back at you in greeting. Somewhere upstairs the family stirs in their soft beds, oblivious to the small army preparing their morning feast. The kitchen fills with motion once more. The scullery maid yawns as she scrubs yesterday's pans. The footman straightens his cuffs and practices his smile in the cracked mirror. The cook arrives, all sharp elbows and sharper words, inspecting the preparations with the vigilance of a general preparing for battle. And you are a footnote in the morning's story, doing what needs doing before anyone remembers to tell you to do it. The bell rings. It always does. You carry the breakfast tray upstairs, your steps practiced and steady, balancing the weight as if your future rests on its porcelain edges. In a way, it does. The mistress greets you with silence. As usual, her hair perfect, in a way that makes you wonder whether it too has a servant of its own. She picks at the toast, sips the tea, and turns the pages of her novel without meeting your eyes. You withdraw, footsteps fading behind you like a sigh no one notices. The hours between breakfast and luncheon stretch wide and thin. There are letters to deliver, boots to polish, floors to sweep. Laundry? Oh, the endless laundry linens bleached to perfection. Collars starched so stiff they could stand upright on their own. You scrub the stains from clothes worn by people who will never know your name. Sometimes as your hands move in endless circles, you imagine a different life. One where your name is spoken with kindness, where you own a pair of shoes that fit, where no one rings a bell to summon you like a dog. But the fantasy slips away, washed down the drain with the soap and water. The midday bell rings, calling you back to the world you belong to. You fetch a coat and venture outside again, the biting wind finding every gap in your clothing. You run errands for the household, collecting ribbons for the mistress, delivering letters to the post, buying spices for the cook. The city greets you like an old, indifferent friend, busy streets, gray skies, and the sharp tang of coal smoke in your throat. For a few fleeting moments out here among the noise and strangers, you are no one's servant. Just a girl with a list in her pocket, and cold fingers tucked into her sleeves. But you know you cannot stay. Back to the house, back to your place. Afternoon slips into its usual routine. Dusting the drawing room, wiping smudges from the mirrors that reflect a world you barely inhabit. Preparing the tea tray with its delicate porcelain and dainty spoons. They will sit and sip, voices rising and falling like birdsong, speaking of things you will never have, vacations to the seaside. The latest fashion from Paris, the scandal of the neighbor's daughter and her unsuitable suitor. You will hear it all, but it will not be yours. The bell rings again. You answer again. You disappear into the wallpaper, into the shadowed corners, into the forgotten spaces between their sentences. And so the day stretches on, till at last, when your body aches and your mind grows quiet from exhaustion, the cook dismisses you with a wave of her tired hand. Back to your room, back up the narrow stairs that creak beneath your weight. You peel off your uniform and sit for a moment by the tiny attic window, watching the city lights flicker like distant stars. Tomorrow waits, patient and inevitable, but for now, you have this one quiet moment, and it is enough. The days may change their names, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, but for you, they all wear the same face. Morning wakes you the same way. With a cold breath against your neck and a cracked bell that rings before your eyelids have fully lifted. And today, like all days, your first greeting is the kitchen's bitter cold, waiting for you to breathe life into it. The fire does not care about your mood. The water does not wait for you to feel ready. And so you move. Because servants who hesitate are servants who fall behind. But today, there is washing. Ah, the washing. Mountains of linens, handkerchiefs, petticoats, stockings, underthings, tablecloths, towels, shirts, and chemises itch, one demanding your hands, your strength, your hours. The mistress wants her linen drawer neat as a prayer book. The master wants his collars so white they could shame a snowstorm. The copper boiler bubbles and spits like an angry dragon as you stir the steaming water with a wooden stick, your arms aching with the weight of it all. You scrub and wring, until your fingers prune and the skin cracks beneath your nails. The soap stings your cuts, but you no longer flinch. You hang the clothes in the courtyard, where the wind snaps them like flags in a battle you did not choose. Your feet are soaked, your back is bent, but the work is only halfway done. Because what is clean must also be ironed. And so, you iron. Hot, heavy irons that leave your arms shaking and your shoulders stiff. You press out every wrinkle as though smoothing the very chaos of your life. And still, no one notices. No one opens their drawer and thinks, what hands made this smooth? They think only of how easily their clothes slide on in the morning, fresh and crisp and effortless. But oh, how much effort. In the quiet between chores, you steal a moment to rub your aching wrists. The scullery maid sits beside you, knotting her apron, and for a brief second, the two of you share a silent companionship. Not joy exactly, the quiet understanding of those who toil together. A bell rings upstairs, shattering the moment like glass, and you rise again. You deliver a hot water bottle to the mistress's room, careful not to let it slosh onto the polished floor. She barely glances up from her embroidery, where she stitches roses into a silk pillow. The room smells faintly of lavender and comfort, a different world from your own. You wonder, not for the first time, what it feels like to sit still for an hour. Downstairs again, always downstairs. The cook calls for more potatoes to be peeled, and you return to your post at the kitchen table, knife in hand. Your thoughts drift, as your hands work sometimes to nothing, sometimes to everything. Perhaps in another life you would be somewhere else entirely, a seamstress, a schoolmistress. But no, here you are peeling potatoes in a kitchen that smells of grease and resignation. And somehow the thought makes you smile, not bitterly, but softly. Because this life, with all its aches and indignities, is still yours to carry. You finish the potatoes, wash the knife, wipe the table. The afternoon fades into evening. Lamps are lit, fires are stoked, and the house settles into its nightly rhythm of footsteps and whispers. Before supper, you steal away for a brief wash in the scullery basin. The water is cold and rough, the soap harsh. You scrub your face, your neck, your hands washing away the day, though not the life itself. That sticks to you, no matter how hard you scrub. In the mirror, cracked and fogged, you catch your reflection. Tired, yes, but still, you, the girl who wakes before the sun, the girl who lights the fires, the girl who keeps going. Supper for the servants is a quiet affair. Bread, cold meat, maybe a bit of cheese if the cook is feeling generous. The kitchen is warmer now, the voice is softer, the day's edges rounded by exhaustion. You sit for a while. You laugh once, softly at a joke the footman makes about the mistress's poodle, and for a moment the weariness lifts. But only for a moment. Because there are still boots to polish before bed, and tomorrow waits, sharp and certain as ever. Night falls like a slow sigh over the rooftops of London, but your work has not yet fallen quiet. Darkness only changes the shape of your duties. It does not end them. In the grand rooms above, the day winds down with soft lamps and the rustle of newspapers. But in the servants' world, the night is another mountain to climb. There are boots lined up in the hallway, dull and dusty from the master's afternoon stroll. His shoes are not allowed to sleep dirty. Neither, it seems, are you. You gather them carefully, pair by worn pair. Mud flakes onto your apron as you carry them down to the scullery, where the cold water waits. You sit on the low stool and begin. Brush, polish, buff. Brush, polish, buff. The rhythm soothes something inside you, even as your wrists protest. With each stroke, the dull leather comes alive again. You watch your reflection appear faintly in the toe of a shoe. It is a tired reflection, but it is yours. When the shoes gleam like small, obedient suns, you line them up in neat rows, ready for the next day's walk through the grime of the city streets. Then it is on to the hearths. The fireplaces upstairs, now reduced to glowing embers, must be tended before the house falls truly silent. You gather your brush and shovel, your coal scuttle, your ash bucket. The house, normally so loud and alive, is quiet now, as if it too is holding its breath. You move like a ghost through the halls, your steps muffled by thick rugs. In the drawing room, the clock ticks a slow, steady beat as you kneel beside the hearth. Ash clings to your sleeves and coats your palms, but you work patiently, arranging the coals so the fire will greet the morning with warmth. This is a servant's magic. The house seems to care for itself, but only because of you. The master's study is next. You pause before entering. His chair sits empty now, his pipe resting beside a stack of papers. The faint scent of tobacco lingers warm and familiar in the quiet night. You sweep the ashes from the hearth and tuck them neatly into your bucket. You add fresh coal, careful not to disturb the stillness of the room. You wonder, briefly, what it would be like to sit in that chair, reading by lamplight, not working by it. But the thought fades as quickly as it came. When the fires are set and the shoes are polished, you return to the kitchen. It is quieter now, the day's noise tucked away. A few servants linger, finishing their own late tasks. You wipe down the work tables once more. There is always something to wipe, something to scrub, something to put right before the next morning tears it apart again. Finally, at the edge of exhaustion, you climb the stairs toward your narrow attic room. The house creaks softly beneath your feet, as if whispering its own goodnight. You pass the family's rooms, where the mistress dreams beneath lace curtains, and the master snores gently behind oak doors. Their world is soft and distant, like a faraway land you will never visit. Your room waits, small and cold, but yours nonetheless. You light your candle, watch the flame tremble in the draught, and sit for a moment on the edge of your cot. There is no applause at the end of your day, no gentle hand to stroke your hair and say, "Well done." But still you made it through. You remove your apron, hanging it on the peg beside your bed, stretch your fingers, stiff and aching. Then you blow out the candle and lie down, pulling the thin blanket over your shoulders. The night presses in, dark and heavy, but not unkind, because here in this quiet space, you are no one's servant. Not for a few brief hours. You belong to the night now, as much as you ever belonged to the day. And even in your weariness, you find something like peace. Tomorrow will come soon enough. Morning again, of course. It always is. You wake before the sky softens, before the frost melts from the glass, before the world stretches its limbs. Another morning, almost identical to the last, and yet brand new in its demands. Your body remembers before your mind does, swinging your legs over the side of the bed, finding your shoes, knotting your apron with hands still stiff from yesterday. You don't fight it anymore. There's no use in asking why the days repeat themselves. They just do. And so you meet them where they are. The kitchen greets you with its usual coldness, a chill that feels almost like an old acquaintance. You light the fire, coaxing it from stubborn embers to bright, crackling life. The first success of your day, small but yours. The other servants trickle in, their faces as tired as your own. The scullery maid stifles a yawn. The footman adjusts his collar. The cook barks her morning orders like a general leading weary troops into battle. And so it begins again. Breakfast preparations flow from your hands as if by instinct. Crack the eggs, slice the bread, stoke the stove, polish the silver teapot. None of it belongs to you, yet all of it depends on you. Upstairs, the family stirs. You hear the creak of the floorboards, the soft thump of slippers on carpet, the muted murmur of voices. You imagine them yawning luxuriously, stretching beneath silk sheets, never once wondering who swept the hearth that warms their toes. That is where you live. In the gap between their comfort and the work it takes to create it, you deliver breakfast trays, open curtains, stoke fires, and disappear before they have reason to remember your face. Servants are not meant to be seen. Only their absence is noticed. Downstairs again, always down. You take a quiet comfort in the scullery's plainness, its unpolished truth. No airs, no pretending. Just you and the pots, the pans, the endless parade of dirty dishes waiting for your hands to restore them. The laundry is waiting too. It always is. Piles of clothes too fine to touch the floor, yet stained by the same sweat and dust as anything else. You scrub them clean, your fingers raw, your arms aching. You bleach, rinse, wring, and hang them high in the courtyard, where the wind and soot do battle for their whiteness. Later, you run errands in the market streets. The mistress needs lavender water, the cook needs nutmeg. The master requires cigars from that particular tobacconist on Fleet Street. Outside, the streets are a different kind of noise children shouting. Vendors hawking their wares, carriages rattling past. And for a moment, your world feels bigger than four walls and a servant's bell. Here, in the market's chaos, you are just another face in the crowd. It's no better, but no worse. You linger for a second longer than you should, watching a flower seller arrange her wilted violets, There is something in her face that you recognize. A tiredness, a resilience, a fleeting hope. But the list in your pocket tugs you back. You are still needed. Returning to the house feels like stepping back into a story where your character has no lines, only stage directions. Exit quietly. Re-enter with tray. By afternoon, the rhythm is familiar again. Dust the library. Polish the candlesticks. Mend a tear in the curtains where the cat found its claws last night. You patch up their lives without thanks, smoothing over what they'll never notice was wrong. You hear them laugh upstairs, bright and careless. It does not bother you as much as it used to. Their laughter is not yours, and you've made peace with that. Instead, you find your moments elsewhere. A warm fire well tended. A floor scrubbed so clean it shines in the candlelight. A slice of bread shared in the kitchen with the other maids, mouths full and smiling despite everything. The hours slip by until supper looms again, and you return to your post in the kitchen, chopping and stirring beneath the cook's sharp eye. The smells of roasting meat and spiced puddings fill the air, rich and teasing. They will feast, you will clean. And tomorrow, you'll do it again. But tonight, there is still the walk up to your attic. The quiet stretch of your limbs before bed, the small crack in the window where you can see the stars. They at least shine the same on masters and servants alike. And for one fleeting moment before sleep takes you, that feels like enough. Some days feel longer than others. Today is one of them. The morning came earlier than usual, perhaps because the master had an early engagement, or perhaps because your body has forgotten how to sleep deeply. Either way, your feet touched the floor before your mind was ready, and you found yourself lighting the fire with hands still tangled in dreams you couldn't quite remember. The cold bites sharper today. Even the kitchen fire struggles to push it back. Steam rises from the scullery basin as you scrub the breakfast pans, mingling with your breath in little ghosts that vanish in the rafters. There are no kind words this morning, no shared jokes between servants, no stolen smiles over a shared cup of tea. Just the sharp edge of duty and the crackle of the cook's voice slicing through the kitchen air. You find yourself slower today, though you dare not show it. Your back aches sooner, your shoulders slump lower. Every step feels like you've walked it 1,000 times before, and you have. But the house does not slow for your weariness. It demands as it always does. The bells ring steadily throughout the day, each one another pebble dropped into the pond of your fatigue. You answer them all. Polish the banisters. Lay the fire in the guest room. Fetch the master's umbrella. Sweep the back stairs again. God. You carry the weight of these tasks without complaint. Because complaint is a luxury, and your life does not afford such luxuries. By afternoon, your hands tremble faintly as you peel potatoes in the kitchen. The scullery maid glances at you, her own face pale, but she says nothing. There is a quiet understanding between those who serve. Everyone is tired, and no one has time to say so. You pause for a moment by the back window, letting your gaze drift beyond the soot-streaked glass. The rooftops of London rise like dark teeth against the fading sky. Smoke curls from chimneys. A lone bird cuts across the clouds, free in a way you'll never be. But the moment is brief. The cook snaps at you to fetch more salt, and the spell breaks. Evening brings the same ritual as always. Dinner for the family, scraps for the servants. Silver to polish, floors to sweep, fires to stoke. You know the routine by heart now, moving through it without thought, like a thread pulled through cloth. But tonight something stings sharper than usual. You notice as you collect the dinner dishes that the family is laughing, truly laughing over something light and silly. And for a single dangerous heartbeat, you wonder what it would be like to join in. To sit at that table, to lift your own glass, to laugh without worry. The thought burns. You carry the plates downstairs and scrub them clean until your knuckles ache. The work keeps you grounded. It always does. When the kitchen finally empties, you take a slow breath and count the small victories of the day. You did not drop a tray. You remembered to shine the doorknobs. You finished before midnight. Sometimes that is enough. Before bed, you visit the scullery one last time. Wash your face in the cold water. Rub your raw hands with a sliver of stolen lanolin. In the cracked mirror, your reflection stares back, tired but steady. Tomorrow, the bells will ring again, and you will answer them. Not because you must, but because it is what you do. You climb the stairs, The house quiet around you now, save for the distant ticking of the long case clock in the hall. It counts down the hours as you count your breaths. Your room waits, small and cold, but familiar. You sit on your cot, slip off your shoes, and let your thoughts wander briefly to places you'll never see. But you smile, faintly, all the same. There is a kind of quiet strength in simply enduring. And tonight, that is what you carry with you into sleep. Morning comes once more, as it always will. The cold touches your face before your eyes open. The sky outside your attic window is still dark, faintly bruised with the coming day. You rise without thinking, your body moving before your mind has time to argue. The house waits below you, sleeping for now, but not for long. Soon it will be alive again, bustling with footsteps that do not thank the floorboards, filled with voices that do not know your name. But for this one quiet moment, it is yours. You light the kitchen fire, the first warmth of the day. It crackles to life, casting flickering shadows against the stone walls, brushing your cheeks with a little borrowed light. The cook arrives soon after, wrapped in her apron and frown. The day unfolds like it always does. A long list of tasks, steady and unrelenting. But today, something feels softer. Perhaps it's the way the sunlight catches the clean brass kettle. Perhaps it's the way the scullery maid hums quietly over the washing up. Perhaps it's just you, deciding to notice the small things instead of counting the hours. Because your life, while hidden behind servants' doors and forgotten in the grand rooms upstairs, is still a life. And there is something quietly brave about living it well. You scrub, sweep, polish, dust. You make things shine. And when the family laughs at the dinner table, it is because the house runs smoothly beneath them, quietly, invisibly. We're the quiet heart of the house. They will never thank you for it. They may never see it, but you know. Perhaps on some distant future day, when this house is old and silent, when the carpets are worn thin and the fires long cold, your work will remain in the quiet spaces. The floors worn smooth by your feet, the banisters polished by your hands, the soot stains you scrubbed away until your fingers cracked, the life you lived hidden in plain sight. Evening falls again, as it always does. You sit by your attic window, elbows on the sill, watching the stars blink awake over the rooftops. You wonder if someone else, somewhere far away, is lighting a fire of their own. Waking before the dawn, answering their own bell, you smile, it's just a little, because though your life is small, it is not meaningless. You have tended fires. You have carried warmth into cold rooms. You have made quiet corners bright again. And tomorrow, when the bells ring once more, you will answer them. Not because they own you, but because this is your life. No one else will live it but you.